Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Celia Alves. I'm with Solvent Excel, and today I am going to talk about an issue that started to happen. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what the situation was, and I'm going after that to explain the system that I built to work around this issue. If you happen to know any better solution, please leave a comment. I would really like to hear from you. If you would like to receive a notification every time a new content is published, please feel free to subscribe and share the news. Okay, so let's do it. So this is a small company, 4 users. They work from their home offices, all of them in different cities, and they access a server using Windows Server 2016 standard. They run Windows 10 and Office 365. So let's imagine this is a server with all the files, and the way the system is built is that these 4 users access the server, and the company uses a set of Excel files to run their operations, their client database, their invoicing, inventory. So these are important files, and they cannot be used at the same time by more than one user, or at least they cannot be edited by more than one user. The files are set up in a way that if a user wants to open the file, he or she is prompted to enter a password if they are looking to edit the information. If they are looking to just look at the information, then they can open the file as read-only, and that way they won't be holding the file and preventing other users from using it at that time. Another important information is that these files are connected between them. They are communicating, exchanging information amongst them through Power Query queries and macros, VBA macros. So some of the files, sometimes depending on what the user wants to do, they go and open other files, read information from it, or write new information on those files, save the file, close the file, etc. So let's pretend this user, let's call her Mary, she wants to use that Excel file. She's prompted to enter a password if she wants to edit the file, and when she enters the password, she gets access to that file, and the file should be locked for editing. So this is the behavior that we expect from Windows to happen. So any other user coming in, let's say John, he wants to also use the file. When he clicks to open the file, he should get a message like this one saying, let's imagine the file is invoices, and he will get a message saying, okay, Mary is using the file. At the moment you can only use it as a read-only. And so if he wants to edit, he needs to wait. What's the issue then? The issue is that the files started to have some unexpected and unpredictable behavior. And by that I mean that some of the files started allowing users, 2 different users, to access the file for editing at the same time. I researched about this issue. I couldn't find a lot of information. I found a few threads discussing a similar situation. I wasn't able to find an effective solution. My first thought was that the files, this could be happening because of the macros that open and close and manipulate the different files involved on a certain procedure. That is my feeling, but I ran a few tests with the help of the team members, and we were not able to identify the real cause of the problem. What seems to be happening here is that for some reason Windows at some point loses track of the files that are being used, that are being edited at a certain moment, and they are not, and so the system is not able to advise users when they want to come in and tell them, let them know that the file is being edited by someone else. So this is what's happening. When John wants to edit the file that is already being edited by Mary, instead of receiving that notice, he will be prompted to enter a password to edit. So he thinks, okay, the file is free, I can use it. He enters a password, and then at this point we don't know anymore if the file is really locked or not by anyone. What we know is that both users are editing the file as if no one else was there, and the file is not on read-only mode for any of those users. So at some point John is done with this work. He clicks to save and he leaves the file. Mary still continues to work on the file, and when she clicks to save, she gets this message saying, okay, it seems that another user already changed the file. What do you want to do now? Do you want to save a copy of the file, or do you want to overwrite that other user's changes? And the truth is, none of these solutions works for this situation. We don't want to create a copy of the file. The file needs to be unique and located at that same place. And of course, who knows what kind of information the other user changed or added to the file, and we don't want to overwrite that work either. So what's the solution for this? First I thought, are there any file properties that I can manipulate with VBA to make sure that Windows stays aware that the file is being used by or being edited by one of the users, and not lose track of that and notify any other user wanting to come into the file? I researched a bit about that. I did some testing. I really couldn't find an effective solution with that approach. So then I thought, okay, so maybe I could just create my own signaling system. So I will find a way to let the file inform the user that another person is already using it. And I also thought that this system would have to be somehow external to the file. And the solution that I'm going to present, it was inspired by a blog post by John Peltier, and also another blog post with some VBA coding by Chris Newman. So thank you to both of them for contributing for this solution. So this is what I thought I could do. I created a folder on a certain location called Files in Use. Inside that folder, I created subfolders named after each one of the Excel files that I wanted to install this system on. For example, if this file is called Invoices, I created a folder called Invoices. Inside of each one of these folders, there will be by default a text file called inuse_no. This file is merely an empty text file. What matters here is that the file is in that location and has that name. So now it comes Mary. She wants to use the Invoices XLSM file. She wants to edit that file. She is prompted to enter the password to edit. She does that, and she gets access to the file, to opening the file for editing. On the open event of the file, the first thing that the file will do is to go and look for the Invoices folder inside the Files in Use folder and check if there is a text file there called inuse_yes. In this case, that file doesn't exist. So what it will do is that it will change the file, the name of the current file, from no to yes, and it also create a new file called named after the user's username. So in this case, the file would be named mary.txt. And after that, Mary gets access to the file and she can work on the file. If John comes along wanting to edit the file at the same time, and if by who knows what reason, the file allows John to enter a password to edit the file as if nobody else was using the file. When John opens the file, that same open event will go directly to the invoices folder inside the files in use folder, and it will search for a file named inuse_yes. If such file or a file with such name exists there, which in this case it would exist, the macro will automatically say, okay, it seems that someone else is using the invoices file, and so you edit the file, please come back later. The macro will also automatically close the file, and before closing, that is another event. Before closing the file, another macro will go and check the same folder if the file inuse_yes is there, and if a file with the user's username, in this case John, exists on that folder. In this case, the file inuse_yes exists, but the file named John doesn't exist. So this makes John just leave the file without saving and without making any other changes. So this way Mary just continues to work the same way she was. The file was not grabbed by anyone else, and the signals that we created here are still the same. After some time, she is done with her work. She can click save. The file will be about to close, but before closing, the macro on the event before close will check again on that folder and will ask, is there an inuse_yes file and a file named after this user, so in this case Mary, and because both conditions are met, what will happen is that the file named after Mary will be deleted, and the other file will be changed, will have its name changed from inuse_yes to inuse_no. And at this point, the file is closed, all the changes were saved, and the file is now available for any other user who wants to come. The conditions there on that folder are what we need to let the macro on the open event to give access to any other user that wants to use the file. Just one last note about this solution and anticipating some problems that may happen. As we all know, Excel may crash at any time. Who doesn't love that? So if that happens, the macro in the BeforeClose event may not run properly. In that case, the file inuse_yes may not be renamed as inuse_no, which will make that any user coming to open the file again will be kicked out of the file, and the file will be locked to everyone. So what to do on a situation like this? Well, the solution is creating a troubleshooting support document. Make sure that you document well how the macros work, what they are supposed to do, and make sure you inform the users where to find information about how to use the files and how to deal with any issues. In this case, please make sure that you create the instructions outside the file, because like we were saying, in a situation like the one I was describing, the user would be able to open the file to see any instructions inside there. Okay, so now let's see a file with this macro in action. I won't be able to show you everything because I would have to have someone else on the server with me trying to access the file and hoping that in that particular situation Windows was behaving that weird way. So I will show you just a portion, but I will show you all the VBA code. So this is a test file. That's the name of the file. And that's the folder, Files in Use, that I was mentioning before. and inside that folder I need to have a subfolder named after the file where I want to implement the system. So the file is called test, this folder is called test. So this is the file called test xlsm, and like you can already see, inside the folder there's a file named after my username Celia and another file named inuse_es. If I close this file, this is what happens according to what I had explained before. So if I click to open the file again, let's watch here on the left. Excel may overlap this window, but okay. So you see, it automatically created a file named after me, my name, my username, and changed the name from no to yes. So let's get a look at the code. It doesn't matter the content of the file, this is just some mock data. What matters in this case is what's in the code. So the code needs to be inserted inside where it says this workbook, and we have a macro for the event workbook open and the file for an event workbook before close. So we define the path to the files in use folder here. Make sure it ends with a backslash here. And we define the file control subfolder, which will be the subfolder for the file in use, as a string. And when opening, we say, okay, if this workbook is read-only, meaning that the user is opening the file for editing, then let's look for the file subfolder, and then let's look inside that subfolder to see if a file with the name inuse_es txt exists there. And if it does, then say, okay, it seems that the file with that name is already being used, please come back later. And that's just the title for the message box. If not, oh, and also come back later, and also of course close the book without saving any changes. If that's not the case, if the file in use yes does not exist, then what we need to do is to name the file in use no as file in use yes, and create a file in that same folder or in subfolder named after the username, and this is the piece of code to get the username from the environment, system environment, and .txt. So it just creates an empty file, and then in the end you can make this subfolder no string if you want. When the file is about to be closed, is instructed to close, this is the macro that will run. If the file is not on read-only mode, then find the subfolder corresponding to this file inside the folder files in use, and check if both two conditions happen. There is a file called in use yes, and there is a file named after the user currently running the macro. If both conditions are met, then change the name of the file in use yes to in use no, and kill, I love this command, kill the file, just delete the file named after the username. And that's it. This is a separate macro adapted from the Spreadsheet Guru website that allows us to create the file on a certain location. You can just copy the code from there. The only thing is that we need to provide the file path, and because this macro is being called from the other macros, so for example text file create, let's see where the information is. When we open, it's when we need to create a file, text file create. So it's calling that macro, and it is providing here all that is in between brackets. It's the information that the macro text file create needs as file path to create the text file that we need. And that's it. This was the solution that I created. It has been tested and it's working very well. So now we can be sure that never happens that two users are editing the file at the same time. If you have any other way of solving this issue, if this has ever happened to you, please feel free to leave a comment below. I would really love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will be in touch soon.